Objection. Thank you, Mr. Poe. The gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll talk fast, even though I'm from the South. Mr. Attorney General, we appreciate your coming before us. In October 2008, the Department of Justice approved the merger between Delta and Northwest Airlines. The Department of Justice issued a statement. You may not remember this. Quote, the proposed merger between Delta and Northwest is likely to produce substantial and credible efficiencies that will benefit U.S. consumers and is not likely to substantially lessen competition, unquote. Unfortunately, that forecast has, in many people's minds, in Memphis in particular, proved to be grossly inaccurate. Many of the promises made by Delta in front of this committee have been broken. As anybody in Memphis can attest, the price of flying out of this quote-unquote fortress hub is much, much, much higher than it is flying out of other cities. And you can fly to cities through Memphis at cheaper prices than you can from Memphis to X. If you go from another city through Memphis to the city, it's cheaper than Memphis to. This has caused the city the loss of conventions, the loss of businesses who said we left Memphis because the price of flight in and out was too great, so they moved to Atlanta. A convention moved to Kansas City. Another group moved to Kansas City. People in Memphis are very upset about this, and we have unreasonably high airfares. Memphis is not alone. Cincinnati lost their hub, and service has been cut in Minneapolis as well. Now that the merger is in place, what type of enforcement mechanisms does your Department of Justice have to ensure competition or to try to get competition and break up what is in essence a monopoly?
Well, I think that we have been appropriately aggressive in our antitrust enforcement efforts. There are a number of cases that we have brought, everything from e-books to the way in which telecommunications industry has tried to consolidate. And in those cases where we have not brought suit, we have extracted from the parties who have sought to join promises or concrete divestitures of assets so that we would maximize the chances that the consumer would benefit. I think we have focused appropriately on what the impact will be on consumers, and I think that the...
But in the airline industry, have we done anything? Because the airline industry has gotten to be basically three major carriers. They've divided up the middle cities, and the middle cities are hostages. They are company towns, and the people in the cities have to pay whatever they're charged. Yeah. Can we do anything about that?
Well, I mean, there's a certain amount of consolidation that has happened in the industry that I think is necessary for the survival of those companies. But, for instance, you look at what Delta and U.S. Air tried to do in transaction involving LaGuardia Airport and National Airport here in Washington, D.C. We approved what they wanted to do in New York, and we have reserved decision on what they wanted to do here in Washington to see what the impact of these consolidated...
If I can interrupt you because our timing is limited. Washington, Los Angeles, New York, the big cities have got competition. It's the middle American cities that are getting the brunt of this. Memphis is one of them. What can you do about Memphis, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, what we can always do is to examine what the impact of these mergers has been, and if we find anti-competitive operations in a particular city.
But then can I ask you to look into Memphis and the situation there? Frontier Airlines came in, Delta came in, undercut them, Frontier left. U.S. Air now is running Memphis, Washington. Delta is going to undercut them. Southwest is not looking to come in. We talked to Southwest. They said, if we come in, we're going to be undercut. That's monopoly.
Yeah. I mean, there cannot be, I can't comment on the particulars that yet because I'm not aware of them, but to the extent that one entity tries to undercut another inappropriately by lowering its prices and driving that competitor out of the market, only to drive that competitor out of the market, and then raises its prices once the competitor is gone, that's inappropriate under our antitrust laws. And that's the kind of thing that would have an impact on consumers and that we would aggressively pursue.
Well, let me ask you to look at the situation in Memphis. That's number one. Number two, in Memphis, too, and I think I've written you about this, grocery store business. Kroger's come in and taken over the market. They bought out Schnucks. Then Schnucks took Kroger's shops in southern Illinois. Schnucks has got a area of influence in southern Illinois they didn't have because they swapped stores with Kroger. Prices have gone up. There's not competition there. It's happening all over America. Business is finding ways to work with each other to create monopolistic practices and take advantage of consumers, and consumers are left off. It's what's happening. Income inequality, purchasing ability inequality, the middle class, the consumer, they've got nowhere to go. The only hope and change they've got is with you and this administration. Otherwise, big business is cutting them out. So I appreciate your looking into those monopolistic practices and looking after the consumer, which I know you want to.
Our focus is on the protection of consumers, and I think, as I said, that we've been aggressive. We put people to head that division who shared that attitude, and as I said, I think they have done a good job.
Thank you, and I yield back the proverbial remainder of my time when I have none.
The gentleman's time has expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz.
Thank you.
5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General.